Eavesdrop. Welcome back, or welcome to the Michelle Care Center podcast. Today on the couch with me, I have the lovely Gishma Johnson from Johnson Communication and PR. And we are going to kick off this episode with a few lightning fire questions. So, the very first question, Gishma, tell us, what was your very first job?
Do you want me to start when I was 14 or when I was workable age?
I think tell us both. Tell us 14 and then first actual job. 14.
When I was 14 years old, I worked in a dry cleaners.
Wow.
Yes, I worked in a dry cleaners, and on a Friday afternoon, people used to bring the dry cleaners in. I'd write it in the book, and they collect it on a Saturday. But I almost lost my job as well. Guess why? Wow. I loved roller skating, and I roller skated, taking the clothes, take it to the back on my roller skates, and in playing around like that, I'd forgotten about the customer one day.
Oh.
And the customer complained to my boss. The next time I couldn't wear my roller skates. That was my first job.
My goodness. And did you think then that you would end up in a communication space?
I actually always wanted to be a teacher.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did you go from that first job, dry cleaner, wanting to be a teacher, and then having quite a long and impressive career in communications and now running your own business?
I think it's more the fact that I like to be productive. Mm-hmm. So working was a productive thing. It was Friday afternoon and Saturdays until 1 o'clock. And during the school holidays, I would work in a factory that not too far from where I live that manufactured clothes. And I used to cut the thread. Mm-hmm. I used to cutting thread and folding clothes. It was my job at the age of 15. And that was during school holidays. So it was more a matter of keeping busy.
Wow.
It wasn't stimulating or anything, but it kept busy. And yeah, so that's what it was. But then I went to study teaching.
You studied to be a teacher? Wow.
I did, yeah. I taught for 9 years. I taught high school for 9 years. And actually today I still enjoy teaching.
Wow. Mm. Yes, you do, because you've been lecturing also.
Yes.
In public relations and in communications.
And yes, and even if I work, I still have, if there's youth around, I'm still teaching. And I'm learning from them as well.
I'm sure the youth teach you a lot. So actually on that topic, you have been involved with something called the YES program, the YES for Youth program. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is that? How did that come about and what does it entail?
So the YES actually stands for Youth Employment Services. So that is actually an initiative started by President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2018, where he wanted businesses to invest in youth and allow them opportunities. So these are not skilled youth. It's just matriculants, to allow them opportunities to work for a year, so at least 12 months on a contract, and pay them for it. So there's a stipend, so it's a minimum wage. So how I came involved was not directly, actually. This was also, I love networking. And to me, networking is that thing where you're going to hear something that ignites something else, you know. And so getting involved with it was a small business who works actually with, he is an accreditor for BBBEE, so the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment, and he does the scoring for companies. And with that, so when you employ young Black people, you get a high score in terms of your Black Economic Empowerment, because you're empowering youth, sure. And especially for youth, you know. And so this was the company working with it, and I was actually a middleman. He was looking to place people. And I said, well, I've got a host of students who need to do internships, otherwise they cannot graduate. And he said, here are the forms, please let them fill it in. But from that, so you can't just also text, I needed to interview students. So every year I interview a number of students and then get them through so I don't work directly with the YES program, but I work through the agent who works with the YES program and for his clients.
And it's so mutually beneficial, because you were saying to me earlier that there's no cost to the company that employs them. So they are separately funded. The youth get the experience, They are naturally becoming more employable. And this is all part, like you said, of the presidential program to curb youth unemployment.
Yes. So thank you to the corporates who actually fund it.
Yes.
So yes, the corporates do fund it. So what I do is I work with the NPOs. So the non-profit organizations always need resources, the human resources, and they cannot afford to pay them. So to me, this was the ideal solution. A young graduate or a person who needs an internship or graduate and training program, they need that employment. The NPO needs the resource, and the corporate who's actually paying for it is helping to develop youth, and they benefit out of that investment which they make.
Yes, yes. That's amazing. That's a win,
It's
a
a
win all
win-win.
round. Yeah.
And that is why I say the networking actually brings that about.
That's what brought all of that about.
Yeah.
Talk to me, what advice would you give to a young person that is starting out in a YES program? So you've been selected, now you're going to a nonprofit or to a corporate. What advice would you give them, especially for youth that are in environments where opportunities like these are scarce?
Yeah, youth need to learn that you can start at the bottom. So whether you work in a corporate environment or whether you work in the NPO sector, and I actually encourage him to work in the NPO sector because that's where you really learn. And especially, so I'm in my field, communication and PR. So in my field particularly, I can't talk for other fields, but I would think it's the same whether you're in engineering or anywhere. But in my field is, my advice to that student is start in the NPO. 9 out of 10 times you'll find that their Facebook page has been established, but there's nobody to manage it. Secondly, you'll find they have no other platforms of communication. And these students have absolutely brilliant skills. So they've got a skill, and the NPOs need that skill, and many of them, because most of the students also come with a laptop from especially if they are funded by NSFAS, then they do have their own laptop. So they actually come to the NPO with their own resources as well. And all you need to give them is the space to work.
Yes.
And so that to me is the student need to find, or the young person need to find that opportunity. And the opportunity lies around us. But I think sometimes we forget, and sometimes youth don't see that as a viable opportunity for them. And also start at the bottom.
Yeah.
You're not going to become the manager in your second year of working.
Sure.
You know?
It takes time, and it
takes
takes a bit of
time,
grit.
yeah.
It takes a bit of grit and time.
Yeah.
If you could shift one major perception about unemployed youth, particularly in South Africa, what would that be?
And I ponder about this a lot, and it's probably not the perception, but it is more fundamentally, I think, because often I will say youth are unemployed due to various number of reasons. And one of it is that they come through high school with very little, and especially in fields where I work, with very little of understanding of writing, reading, for example. And if you come into a communications job, you've got to do both. You must be able to read, you must be able to write. So, and I often say this to the university, to the lecturers, and I say, I won't employ these students. Yeah, because, so somehow we need to do something at high school level so that we can make youth more employable. Because they're not going to learn those skills at university particularly. They need to come from high school with that. And there are a number of other things as well in terms of youth employment. Often I think that youth don't want to do certain jobs. And yet if they go overseas, there are hard labor that they're going to do, but they're not going to do it in South Africa. So, yeah. And if I look at or rather foreigners who come into our country and how they are working, and then you find that our South Africans are unemployed, something does not weigh up.
Do you think that that's a problem with work ethic?
Yes, there is a problem with work ethic. And I'll just take, not in terms of work ethic, but also in terms of the types of jobs. So let's take truck driving, for example. And a couple of years ago, we saw that there was unhappiness with South Africans saying that foreigners are taking our jobs. And when it is offered, so there's a lack of skilled, because they're not going to go and train for truck drivers, but the opportunities are there. So the transportation companies then have to employ for elsewhere. And with a number of things, it is like that. Work ethic, something, but most of the time work ethic, once you get into the job, you actually learn work ethic. And so it is not to say that you cannot learn that.
No, for sure. It can definitely be honed, and I think it also depends a lot on the company culture.
Yes.
And so people can really absorb that. But I think, we are sitting sometimes in environments where we've got generations of people that didn't have opportunities, and now their children are entering the workforce. And so you and I probably learned from our parents and our grandparents, watching them and watching them go to work. But if you've never had that role model, that is very difficult to do. I think that the YES program is a great way to kind of bridge that gap.
No, absolutely. And any program for youth, for that matter, where there's opportunity given to youth to work, whether they work through a program, because there are internships. Many of our corporates and local companies actually have internship opportunities, not via the youth program, but just so that skills can be taught at that level. And also, I've seen, for example, in Hugenake, at one of the corporates there, so they have a whole training center. And there's apprenticeships programs. Those learners just come from, they've got matric, and now they learn. And some of them, because to become an apprentice in certain fields, you do not need matric. You need to have passed grade 9. And I always say, if you can work with your hands, you'll have a job.
It's so true, and there's such a big need for that in this country.
So that's also the other misalignment in terms of job and employment.
Yes.
So many graduates out there without work, but yet there are few that go into the hand skills jobs.
The trades are so important.
Yep.
And that's been our argument. We've got a job placement centre here at the care centre as well. And we've always said, a matric, we're not saying don't go get your matric, but it's not the be all and the end all, that you can be a very valuable, productive citizen even without that certificate.
Yes.
And so I think we're slowly moving towards that companies are understanding that certain skills can be taught without that certificate.
Yes.
In some cases, like you say, in a communications sphere, you do need that foundation.
That's your skill. That's the skill that's going to take you through your career.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I just on that point, I'm mentoring a youngster now who cannot keep a job. And communications graduate, he cannot keep a job. And I gave him an assignment, and I said, do this assignment for me. So it's a writing assignment, because I want to see what is his problem. And his problem is attention to detail and a lack of writing skill. So now I'm taking him through that. We're starting from scratch, and I'm teaching him what I think because I come from the other side, I know what the corporates want. Or anybody is going to, whether it's an agency or anybody is going to employ him. But if they're going to employ him and they need to edit everything, correct everything that you write, you become more liability of time, of somebody's time instead of an asset.
That's true.
Because I don't mind editing, but I can't rewrite something for you.
No. Yeah, editing. Yeah, no, for sure. So what does a successful outcome look like to you? Like once, not just for YES, but just anybody that's employing and uplifting young people. What does a successful outcome look like?
When that youngster can find a job. So that to me is the outcome, whether it is in the NPO sector or whether it is in the corporate sector, in government or wherever. If that young person finds a job, they've made it. Yeah.
They've made it. Employability is everything. Yes. All right, a few personal questions. Hishma, tell me, coffee or tea? What do you prefer?
I like a cup of coffee in the morning. After 10 o'clock, I drink tea. Is
it because the coffee, the caffeine is too much?
Coffee doesn't taste nice after 10 o'clock.
Oh, really? But you need it to wake up.
Yep. Yeah, in fact, tea doesn't taste good before 10 o'clock.
That's interesting. Okay. Tell me, if you had to describe the South African youth in one word, you work with a lot of them. If you had to describe South African youth in a single word, what word would that be?
Impatient.
Impatient.
Everything is instant.
That's true. That's true. I think that's the generation we live in now. I think we live in a society where everything is instant, right? Everything is on demand. Everything we watch, everything we read, everything is very instant. So yeah, they're
so when they have to wait for things, they become very impatient.
And I think that can be a positive thing as well, because they get things done.
Yeah.
They don't want to sit around and wait.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with a change maker, it could be somebody local or global, who would you like to sit and have dinner with?
I want to say Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, but I am quite privileged in having had dinner with him a few times.
Wow, and how was that?
Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman has got an amazing memory, and you sit around a dinner table with a number of people, and he knows where every person fits in over a period of time.
No, he is incredible. He
Yeah,
really is
and
incredible.
he is a change maker. Yeah,
Definitely. Probably one of the biggest of our times,
Yes.
I would say.
Absolutely.
Definitely. What is something that you're really proud of that most people don't know about you?
That I'm proud of? Most. I think in the circles where I move, most people know what I do, because I'm always proud of my work, of what I deliver. I actually don't think people know what I put in youth development. I think very few people know that. I'm actually thinking, I was thinking the other day, if I look at students that I've put through not just the YES program, but through internships and that, it's way over 30. Yeah, I think in the last 4 years, I might have had 30 students alone.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is besides my previous years when I interviewed interns to work in the office. And many of them, in fact, some of them are now managers, senior managers.
That's amazing.
And they started off as interns in my office. And that particularly I'm very proud of, because when they start as an intern and really unsure of what they do or what to do, all I do is, because I know they've got a skill, and I give them the project and I say, you run with this project. All I'm going to do is supervise, because that's what I'm there for. And I think one of my interns with the best outcome, according to me, because she comes from a rural village. She was very timid when she started, and suddenly here she is, a big corporate that she needs to fit into. And already I could sense her nervousness in the interview. And she was up against another person who was very confident. And he had hopped from internship to internship. And when we looked at the two, so that one could write, I usually give them a writing test, because that will determine which one is the better of the two. After the writing test, my manager said, but Gish, why are you choosing this girl? And I said, well, she's got a very good attitude. The young man has jumped from job to job, and every time when I looked at his CV and I interviewed him and I asked him what was the matter here, no, these people were like this and those people were like that and so on. And the young woman she was a very positive person, quiet, timid, very positive. And the one thing I said to my manager is, I can teach her to write, but I can't teach him attitude. And I took her in, and the moment she started, so I put her in on a program with a writer, and I said, okay, that writer must mentor her, and the rest of the work I did, because she was the events coordinator. She did all the events. I gave her her very first assignment was, when she did the event, she had to do the welcoming.
Oh, wow.
She had to do it, very nervous, and this was an external speaker, and she did the welcoming. So everything else she put in place with the teas and the coffees and all of that, invited people. She had to create the invitation and everything. And I think after that, just that one breakthrough, after that, she was a confident person. And so she started running all the plant tours. She actually just did all the in-house events out of her own and came up with ideas and in the meantime her writing was improving.
Wow.
And to me that was one of something that makes me extremely proud.
I'm sure.
Because and she works in Cape Town today, very humble person. And the one thing I always say when they leave me, I say remain humble. You know?
That's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important. But that's a lot to be proud of. That's really lovely to see somebody grow like that, and that you played quite a significant role in where she is today.
Absolutely.
I think what some people might also not know about you is that your love for roller skating hasn't left you. So 14-year-old Gishma was skating, and we won't give your age away, but you're still skating away.
Yes,
aren't you?
I love roller skating.
Yeah.
I did fall last year in my reverse, so I do some reverse tricks.
Oh.
And I don't know if the ground was moist or what, with dew, because I was skating outside and I fell and I broke my arm. I broke my wrist in 2 places. I didn't even know it was broken in 2 places, but yeah.
My
6
goodness.
weeks later, well, I was typing with one hand, and 6 weeks later, I was back using both hands again. So it's fine.
Okay, well. Who's the most famous person on your contact list?
Again, it's probably Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman. Because I had Sister Ethel, the late Sister Ethel, on my contact list as well. But now probably, I think it's probably Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman. Yeah.
Good. Last question before we wrap it up. What is the most serious damage control you've ever had to do as a public relations practitioner?
Yeah, and I think damage control, or rather reputation management, is part of what we do. And I remember in 2009, America went into an economic downturn. Right. And I worked for an American company at the time, but locally based. And with that economic downturn, this company had filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And suddenly, you now have to think that your customers are thinking, wait, because your company carry the same name, and they're going to think that your company is going bankrupt. So immediately proactive, we have got to be proactive and make and change things and get your messaging out of there. Get your key messages out of there and say, well, this is in America what's happening. Each subsidiary is responsible for its own viability. And I had changed even the message on hold on the phone. So if you call in, then there's always while you're on hold, then there's a voice that says, test drive the whatever vehicle and so on. And one of the messages that the message I scripted it and I said, and it was General Motors at the time. General Motors South Africa is responsible for its own viability, and the messaging was in line with that. So if you own a Chevrolet, a Hummer, whatever the brand was, I just gave that assurance that we are not impacted by that negativity in the US. And in fact, the Star newspaper gives you an orchid and an onion. They have this weekly orchid and onion awards. We got an orchid award for managing PR through a phase like that.
Yeah, I remember that time. That was a very, very serious time globally. And a lot of stress on you guys.
No,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well done for thinking out the box, and even like while the customer's on the phone, being reassured. That's also that's more than a newsletter or a newspaper article.
Yes. Because the marketing department did place in big ads to say, "Don't worry about your Chevrolet," and so on. But from a PR point of view, as being proactive and getting that messaging out and making sure that you're getting radio interviews proactively. Because there are certain things that you do reactively, but for reputation management, it's proactive.
Proactive is everything. Yeah. No, I completely get it. Well, thank you so much. Thank you also for what you've done for us here at the Care Centre. Gishma has gotten us lots of press and some interns as well that have been placed with us over the years. I think we've about 4 or 5 that have come through you, and some are still with us today. Some are right behind the camera as I'm speaking. So it's been a journey, and thank you so much for being my guest today. And yeah, we look forward to having you again.
Thank you so much. And I think I should thank Missionville Care Center for being open to accepting these youth because they have graduated thanks to you making available that opportunity. And this is where they work. And I often tell youth, when they tell me, I know we're wrapping up, but when they tell me that they haven't had opportunity to work, they had to make tea and they had to pack books, then I say, what is your skill? Because if you're not showing what you can do, then anybody's going to use you to make tea. So you are at fault.
Yeah.
And that's my message to them. Demonstrate what you can do, and nobody will take you for granted.
Show us what you got. Show us what you
Exactly.
got. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and share. We'd love to grow this channel, and we'd also love to hear from you. What else would you like us to talk about? And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye-bye.